Well, happening now, one Texas representative makes a move to impeach the president. What other lawmakers have to say. Is there a new currency on the rise? Facebook is trying to put their plan into action soon. And what's next for future space missions? NASA is testing a new rover in Iceland.
Now on WVTM 13 News at 5.
Good afternoon. Thanks for joining us. Right now, a Birmingham police officer is still recovering after being shot while responding to a robbery last night. Officer Colin Stafford was responding to a robbery at the family supermarket on 23rd Street North. Officials say the suspect took off running, and when the other officers got there, that's when the suspect fired shots at Officer Stafford. The suspect was shot and killed. Officer Stafford was rushed to UAB Hospital for surgery. We don't have an update on his condition. We're going to keep you posted on this story as soon as we get any new developments. Look for those here on the air and on the WVTM 13 app. Well, flies have taken over one neighborhood next to a wastewater treatment plant, and people there say they are frustrated. WVTM 13's Larissa Scott talked with residents about the nuisance.
Flies.
I know it's a problem in this neighborhood.
Arbor East in Coleman County.
It's just been, a kind of an increase, especially over the last 3 or 4 weeks.
People who live in the neighborhood say they're infested with sewer flies.
Usually you just see them out like on the porch and, in the front area.
But this year, they're everywhere.
You'll just be walking through your house, you'll see them on the walls and just flying everywhere and landing on stuff. It's just been, a nuisance.
The flies are no strangers to the community because the wastewater treatment plant is right next door.
In the evening time, it'll be like, tons of them will just come in right when you're opening the door.
Wastewater treatment plant officials say they're not sure why there are so many more flies this year, but people say the recent increase is frustrating.
I would hope they could do something,
The wastewater treatment says it's looking into multiple options. Currently, it's spraying chemicals into the water. It has been since February. Also, managers say that they put larvicide in the sewer lines, and they're spraying the neighborhoods at least 3 times a week. In Coleman, Larissa Scott, WVTM 13.
Well, state wildlife officials continue to get complaints about geese tearing up yards and leaving droppings behind. WVTM 13's Aaron Kelly tells us why there are so many geese this time of year.
If you've got geese in your neighborhood, you're not alone. State wildlife officials say they're getting several complaints a week this time of year about the migratory birds.
As cute as they are, they do make quite a mess for our parking lot, for our families to come in and out. We have literally spent hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of dollars.
Justin Scarcella says the birds have flocked to his Taekwondo school for years.
Power washing and sweeping our concrete almost every single day. We have had people in the past not want to come into the school because of what the geese have done to our parking lots.
They've tried coyote and fox decoys, a noise machine called a goose buster. Nothing's worked.
I have to say they are a hazard for people driving.
Natalie Autry says drivers are good about stopping for the geese that graze near her office. She worries about residents walking on soiled sidewalks.
They don't bother me. I actually love to see them. I love the wildlife. It's just that the sidewalks are getting a bit messy. I have to say that's the only thing.
That was Aaron Kelly reporting. Alabama Wildlife and Freshwater Fisheries say the birds are protected. They cannot be moved. So if birds are creating health or water safety issues, you can ask for a permit to deal with the geese. Auburn University's former assistant basketball coach Chuck Person will not be going to prison. He was sentenced today for his role in the NCAA corruption scandal. Person got community service and 2 years of supervised release. He pleaded guilty to bribery charges for accepting more than $90,000 to steer top players to a certain financial advisor. In his specific case, the judge said that no purpose could be served by incarceration. Now, 2 of the other 3 involved in the case are heading to prison. Lamont Evans from the University of South Carolina and Emmanuel Richardson from Arizona State University both got a 3-month sentence. Tony Bland from University of South Carolina was sentenced to 100 hours of community service. We are continuing our state of addiction coverage today. A Birmingham doctor and his sister, who is a nurse, have been convicted of almost $8 million in healthcare fraud. Dr. Patrick Efadiba operated Care Complete Medical Clinic. They're accused of having opioid-dependent patients submit unnecessary allergy testing for treatments for narcotic prescriptions. U.S. Attorney Jay Town said this jury verdict should put all healthcare providers on notice that sacrificing care for greed will land you in federal court. Now, both are facing up to 80 years in prison and millions of dollars in fines. A 3-year search for a missing woman is branching out to 2 counties. Police told our news partners at the Coleman Tribune that they suspect foul play in the disappearance of Jordan Wilson. Coleman and Walker counties hope that this joint effort will bring about new answers.
Sometimes bad people think, well, they're going to forget about me. I can promise you this, and I know 110%, there's no doubt, the men that you see up here will not forget.
Well, her family says the mother of two had disappeared before, but never for more than a few days. The family is now offering a $10,000 reward, hoping for information. And Bessemer police also offering a reward for a cold case. Devin Sandlin was shot to death on June 4th, right along 14th Street. Detectives say that 6 people were in the yard when he was shot. So if you have any information, you're asked to call the Bessemer Police Department. Well, Chelsea could soon be getting a 1-cent sales tax increase. The room was packed last night at a public hearing discussing that possible tax. City leaders say this would benefit the city's schools, bringing in about $1.5 million a year. Chelsea's mayor says the schools could use the money for anything from supplies to hiring administrative assistants. Most people at that meeting were against that increase. And Hoover City leaders say the Hoover Met is doing better than expected. That complex sees thousands of visitors every single year. A presentation to the council this week shows this had an economic impact from October to May of more than $31 million. That beats an earlier estimate by more than $17 million.
That's regional impact. That's for Hoover and all the surrounding communities, and that's a big number. And it shows that this project was originally somewhat controversial, but it shows that it was a good idea, and also that this council is also executing that plan well.
Well, leaders say while the complex isn't making a profit yet, it is ahead of schedule. Articles of impeachment against President Trump were introduced by a Texas Congressman, Al Green, this week, and this could force a vote later this week. Right now, a majority of the Democratic caucus appears to oppose impeachment, but Green wants to capitalize on a growing sentiment for impeachment in the wake of comments the president made on Twitter that many feel were racist. The measure was introduced shortly after the House voted to condemn the president for saying that 4 Democratic congresswomen should go back to their home countries. The president continues his attacks on the 4 lawmakers. Today, he said he has a list of disparaging comments that they made against him.
That is so bad, so horrible, that I almost don't want to read it.
Well, the resolution is a symbolic reprimand on the president's remarks. The Trump administration is being sued over the move to end asylum protections for most migrants crossing the border, the U.S.-Mexico border, the southern U.S. border, that is. The American Civil Liberties Union, Southern Poverty Law Center, and Centers for Constitutional Rights filed to sue yesterday in federal court. The Trump administration's proposal would prevent most migrants from seeking protection as refugees if they pass through another country first. Well, President Trump says that immigration raids are underway. There are no official reports of the raids, but local immigrant communities are still afraid, especially after a recent ICE raid scare in Pelham. That scare turned out not to be true, but it shows how scared people really are. Experts say immigrants should not let their guard down, even here in Alabama. Immigration attorneys say that people should know their rights.
Unless the agent has a judicial warrant, they don't have to answer the door. They don't have to go anywhere with the agent. They really can just stay inside.
Well, ICE agents can come to someone's door and ask questions. They cannot legally go inside or forcibly remove someone without a warrant. A U.S. wanted terror suspect and radical cleric is behind bars in Pakistan tonight. Hafiz Syed was wanted in the U.S. for the 2008 Mumbai attacks. He was taken into custody by counterterrorism officials. Syed appeared before a judge and was ordered to be held in jail until his next hearing. Now, the U.S. had offered $10 million for him. Pakistan banned Syed's charities earlier this year and had previously detained him along with several close aides. He has not been charged or put on trial so far. And the Mexican drug lord known as El Chapo will be spending the rest of his life behind bars in a U.S. prison. A federal judge handed down that sentence in Brooklyn today. His real name is Joaquin Guzman. He was convicted on several counts in an industrial-sized drug smuggling operation back in February. Now, a life sentence is mandatory under federal sentencing guidelines, but the Justice Department asked a judge to tack on an additional 30 years in prison, citing the illegal use of guns. El Chapo spoke at the sentencing, saying he did not receive a fair trial, with his defense attorneys agreeing, calling this a show trial.
If you pump hundreds of thousands of tons of cocaine and other drugs into our country, we will find you, we will extradite you, we will prosecute you, and we will bring you to justice.
El Chapo operated his illegal drug trade for almost 30 years. Well, yet another outbreak of Ebola is hitting the Congo this week. The head of the World Health Organization met with experts to decide whether this outbreak should be declared an international emergency. It's the 4th time the organization has met to assess the virus outbreak. With the virus having the potential to spread more widely to neighboring countries, South Sudan is currently on high alert. Well, a grieving husband and father who lost his entire family in an Ethiopian airliner crash is asking Boeing to scrap the 737 MAX. He tells Tom Costello how he is preparing to send Congress a strong message.
4 months since a 737 MAX crashed in Ethiopia, killing everyone on board, Paul Jiroge says his pain remains unbearable. His wife, Carol, his 3 children, Ryan, Kelly, and Ruby, and his mother-in-law, Anne, all died. Paul, a Canadian, is now all alone.
They took my life away because without my family, I don't have a life.
The Ethiopian crash came just months after another 737 MAX crashed in Indonesia. In all, 346 people killed. Jiroge blames Boeing and the FAA. He plans to tell Congress the MAX should never fly again and Boeing execs should face criminal charges, though that's unlikely.
For the sake of human life safety, the 737 MAX should be scrapped.
Meanwhile, the 737 MAX remains grounded worldwide. Boeing expects to submit a package of software fixes in September, but under intense scrutiny, FAA approval could take time. U.S. airlines that fly the MAX are taking it out of service until early November at the earliest. But aviation experts believe it could take longer than that.
It's going to go out to the end of the year, at least in my view, because the eyes of the world are looking at the ungrounding of this airplane, and there's still a long way to go.
Again tonight, Boeing says it regrets the loss of life and is deeply sorry for the impact to the families and loved ones.
And that was NBC's Tom Costello reporting. Well, Sprint has confirmed a major data breach. The company told customers that hackers may have gotten access to accounts through Samsung's Add a Line website. The company says names, billing addresses, phone numbers, other sensitive information as well may have been compromised. Sprint says that no other information that could create a substantial risk of fraud or identity theft was acquired. They learned about the breach last month and resent PIN codes for all of the accounts that were impacted. We still don't know how many customers were affected. And a new currency could be just around the corner. Facebook's digital currency was the focus of a Senate hearing today on Capitol Hill. Some lawmakers questioned the plan to create the currency, but Facebook executive and co-creator of Libra, David Marcus, defended the plan, saying that the social network would work with regulators to protect the privacy of users' data. The currency would open commerce to people who do not have access to bank accounts, but it also raises privacy concerns and the potential for fraud.
We will take the time to get this right. We expect the review of Libra to be among the most extensive ever. We are fully committed to working with regulators here and around the world.
Libra officials say they're confident in the new currency and they stand behind it 100%. So NASA is testing a new rover, what this means for the future of space missions. And it has been 3 months since the Notre Dame Cathedral fire. We're going to have the latest on the cleanup and the restoration efforts underway. One head outside this afternoon, show you a cloudy Birmingham. 88 degrees is the current temperature. We are tracking some showers on the WVTM 13 live Doppler. We're going to let you know when that rain's going to move into your neighborhood. You're watching WVTM 13 News.
You're watching WVTM 13 News.
So NASA is testing a new rover in Iceland for future Mars missions. It's a self-driving rover preparing for a mission to Mars next year. Mission Control Space Services CEO says the tough weather conditions in Iceland make this feel more like Mars. The testing terrain consists of both sand and of lava.
We're receiving data from the outside, which would be Mars, so from the rover, and from that we obtain high-resolution images, which we have here, and we can alter these images to show us different colors, which would indicate the diversity of the environment.
Well, NASA has funded a project to study Mars-like volcanic sand environments in Iceland before NASA's Mars 2020 rover mission is set. So this week marks the 50th anniversary of the Apollo 11 mission to the moon, and yesterday the U.S. Space and Rocket Center in Huntsville had their own mission. They attempted to break the record of the most model rockets launched simultaneously from the same place. See it right there. So the launch was at 8:32 in the morning, the same day and the same time Apollo 11 lifted off 50 years before. Now, the previous record was 4,231, held by a college based in the Netherlands. The U.S. Space and Rocket Center broke the record by launching 5,000 model rockets. And French officials were able to tour the damaged area of the Notre Dame Cathedral 3 months after that fire. The site is still covered in debris and the ceiling is torn apart. They inspected the damage with France's chief architect of historic buildings and the current head of the Notre Dame renovation effort. Construction workers are securing the cathedral structure before that rebuilding process can begin. Robotic machines are being used to remove debris from the cathedral since there's a risk of falling objects right now. The French president pledged to finish rebuilding in time for France to host the Olympic Games. That's coming up in 2024. And an athlete from Tonga grabbed the attention of the world in one shining moment during the Rio Olympic Games. Pita Taftafua is trying to qualify for his third Olympic Games. So you may recall in 2016 he competed in Taekwondo. In 2018, the Winter Games, he competed in cross-country snow skiing, and now he is setting his sights on Olympic kayaking. And we're just about a year or so from the 2020 Summer Olympics, and today we're getting a look at the venues in Tokyo that the athletes will compete in. Some buildings still have a little bit of work to do until they're Olympic ready, but they've still got a year. You can watch the Olympics kick off and all the coverage right here on WVTM 13 News. Mark it on the calendar, July 24th, 2020 is when we have the opening ceremonies. A nursing home in Kansas is letting its residents cool off in a different way this summer. Check this out. Staff at the home transformed the lawn into a slip and slide for seniors. So the caregivers, you see, they help the residents out of their wheelchairs. They put them in a float, and then you can see they pull them down the slip and slide. It's part of the mission to let the residents live on their own terms.
A nursing home isn't just a place for people to be stuck. A nursing home is truly a home for those people.
I love it. So the fun doesn't stop in the summer. They made snow angels in the wintertime. They have spa days for the residents, a cigar night as well, all kinds of different activities throughout the year. All right, that's going to do it for us this afternoon. Thank you so much for spending some time with us here on WVTM 13. For news and weather around the clock, you can always download the free WVTM 13 mobile app.